We can give it 1 minute and we'll get started because it looks like people are still popping on.
You can read that?
Does that say how many people are live there? It does somewhere.
Can you enlarge the messages part? I can't read it.
No, we're having slight technical issues.
Ooh, Jenny?
Yeah, I would say don't look at the screen because it'll probably confuse you.
Oh, okay, our audience is right there.
Hey, baby.
Big eyes.
Dysfunctional family Thanksgiving.
Later we're going to get drunk and fight, okay?
That's how Thanksgiving is, right?
That's right. That's right.
I can see Lego now.
Oh, no. She's the horrified aunt in the back that calls the cops when the cousins get into it.
Hey, I'm an Irish girl from Chicago. I've seen all kinds of stuff. I can't believe.
Okay, should we get going? All right, everybody, welcome to the next edition of the Lodi Wine Brand Live online tasting. We're glad you all tuned in this evening to watch us eat our dinner and taste some wines. For this edition, we decided to do things a little different, and hopefully it'll turn out well, but there's a lot of variables on our end that might look quite silly when it comes to it. But our concept and theme this evening is your out-of-the-box Thanksgiving. And tonight I'm joined by, on my right here, Layne Montgomery from M2 Wines. My left, Sue Tipton from Acquiesce, and then Adam Mettler on the end from Mettler Family Vineyards and Michael David Wines. So the concept tonight was out-of-the-box Thanksgiving. And so what we decided to do was partnered with a good friend of mine, Tony Lawrence, who's a chef out of Philadelphia. And Tony prides himself in being a wine chef, in pairing foods to go with wines. And so we sent him a case of Lodi wine, and we said, here's, pick 4 and create 4 recipes to go with it. And so Tony came back with the 4 wines we have in front of us this evening, as well as the 4 you have hopefully all received, and came up with 4 recipes. And we, on the staff here, decided to try and prepare all these foods tonight to go with the wines. And so Cameron, Jenny, and myself spent last night and this morning cooking, and we're going to try and see how we did with our food here.
You cooked?
I did cook, yeah. I did the short ribs, so.
You're multi-talented.
Yeah, I wear many hats. But we'll get into the foods a little bit later here, or mine for that matter. But once again, this is the Lodi in the Lodi appellation. All 4 wines are from Lodi. And one of the things that we like about Lodi is the diversity and eclecticness of the wines and the people that come from here. We've got over 100 varieties that are being grown, and over 60 in commercial production levels. So there is awful good variety to go with our eclectic Thanksgiving. Now, one of the things we thought would be interesting to do is just not do your traditional turkey and whatnot, but to come up with recipes and foods that are different. And we want to get these out to everybody in advance of Thanksgiving, because one of the things that we all know is that more wine is drunk and consumed on Thanksgiving than any other day of the year. There are several theories as why, but my prevailing theory is that it's mostly to tolerate your relatives. And wine is always a good social lubricant to deal with your difficult Uncle Ed or...
I like your mother a lot. I've never met the rest of your family.
Yeah. That's why your family drinks a lot, though, huh?
No. I'm the black sheep.
Anyways, so tonight our first wine is going to be from Sue. And Sue, before we get started on the wine, why don't you tell me just a little bit about your winery and your focus and what you're doing?
Yes, so I have an all-white wine winery that focuses on French Rhone varietals. My cuttings are from Château Beaucastel in the Châteauneuf-du-Pape region of France. And so the reason I took this focus is I felt that whites were a little harder to make, and I wanted to just focus on them. And I fell in love with a white Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Thought it was the best white wine I'd ever had, and so decided to plant the Grenache Blanc on our acreage in Lodi, and was really happy with how it went, and so I planted the other varietals too. So we've only been in tasting rooms, been open now only 4 years. We have a small production, and we sell out every year by Thanksgiving, so it's very timely. And then we reopen in March with our new wines. So to resolve that problem, I just planted 6.5 more acres of whites, hoping to have enough to stay open year-round.
Good. So why don't we, Adam, why don't you pass down the Acquiesce, because this soup and this wine is making my mouth water.
Yeah, it's...
You can smell the soup.
And I need a little social lubricant to get me through the rest of this evening.
Oh, please.
Right?
That's a pretty wine bottle.
Sue, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Viognier?
Yes, so I only have an acre of the Viognier, and it's the first white that's picked every year. We started picking early August this year, and yet it tends to be on the higher end alcohol-wise. This one is 13.5% alcohol, and I think that you get a lot of peaches and apricots up front when you first take a smell of this wine. And the Viognier is quite an amazing wine in that it pairs with so many different foods. If you've got any kind of food you're not too sure what to pair it with, the Viognier is usually a good one to go to. It varies all the way from last Thanksgiving I had a goat cheese bruschetta with an arugula salad on top as an appetizer, and paired really nicely with the Viognier. My husband's favorite is jalapeno sausage from Lockford Sausage locally here in town. So, but yes, it's got the nice aromas. One of the biggest hits we had was a Moroccan-themed dinner that we had, and we had lamb tagine that was paired with this. And what made it so nice was so many people didn't realize that you could pair a white wine with red meat, and so it was a big seller that evening.
So one of the things I did in preparation for this was actually talk to Tony and say, how did you come up with these recipes? And Tony's approach usually is the first thing he does is he sits down with the wines, and what he says is he likes to taste them over a bell curve, and that may be a period of time for a day or two, and see how the wine evolves. And then he makes his notes on the aromas and flavors he's getting in the wine, and he commented on the beautiful floral, citrus, and nice acidity that this wine had, that had a really nice, clean mouthfeel and had these layers of stone fruit. And so when he went about putting the recipe together, he thought butternut squash soup, because it's such a soup that goes very well with the holidays. It's very pretty and thematic, and he thought it would go really well with this.
That wine has a beautiful body, beautiful feel on the palate. It just is. That's really good. I'm jealous.
Oh. Well, it's a really nice pairing, I believe, with the soup. Really did a good job.
Yeah, and
That's really nice.
The one thing he did say too is if you're looking for a richer and fuller soup, you can add some cream towards the end, because this has no cream in it, I believe.
I don't think it needs it.
And I don't think it needs it either, too. It has the flavors are really coming through. I'm sure some of you who didn't prepare the foods are probably jealous as us sitting here eating. So we'll just tune out for the next 5 minutes while we eat our soup. We'll be back in a few minutes. But no, all kidding aside, I think it's a very nice wine. I think Sue is demonstrating that white wines can be done very well here in Lodi. One of the challenges we've faced as a region as we've gone out and tried to explain what we're doing is people come to expect us to be red wine country, and a lot of that I think can be attributed to the success Michael David had early on with their 7 Deadly Zins and how much they penetrated the market that people came to expect. That was what Lodi was good at. But I think what Sue is demonstrating and a few other producers are now demonstrating is that you can make some really lively and fresh and delicious whites from a whole range and styles of wines.
But yeah, you got to source your varietal for your climate, and that works really well here.
Well, we actually have a climate that's very similar to the southern Rhone region of France.
Yeah.
So we are 2 degrees warmer in the summer during the day than they are in southern France, but we're 2 degrees cooler in the evening. So we feel it makes up for it, and it's very similar, so all the southern Rhones do really well.
So we've got a question out of Dizelle. Stylistically, how would you compare the Viognier your 1 acre produces to what's coming out of Conadru?
Well, I find that those Viogniers are much more minerally, and they don't have the fruit forwardness that we have in Lodi. And I think that's pretty typical of most Lodi wines. We're really surprised when we take wines that have yet to be planted in Lodi and try them from Lodi, which I have with our Picpoul Blanc, and you get this wonderful expression of fruit that you really don't get in the French varietals. And that's not to say that the French varietals are amazing, but they're very minerally, which is great, but they don't really have the fruit. You won't get the peaches and the apricots like you will from a Lodi version of Viognier.
I must say the mascarpone yogurt topping is delicious as well, too.
Yeah, I think I could eat a bowl of that.
So Cameron, as our resident pseudo-vegetarian, was the one who prepared the
He's a vegetarian?
Kind of.
Vegetariable?
Prepared the soup tonight for us. Yeah.
Are you a vegetariable?
Not completely. Just mostly.
Mostly.
The sweet potato chips are nice there too. Add a little crunch, a little texture.
Did you make those or did you buy those? One of the questions coming from Illinois is how quickly is the climate changing in Lodi, and is it appropriate varietals changing or not yet? Who wants to dive into that one?
That's who knows. I guess we're all concerned about that, but there's no definitive answer, and I don't think there will be for quite a while.
I just looked back over the last 4 vintages, and 2011 was the coldest and latest harvest in my memory, and 2015 was the earliest vintage in my memory.
2010 was gorgeous, even temperatures all summer long.
I will take.
Who knows what normal is anymore?
Yeah. Adam, what do you think?
Adam's more of a grower type.
I think that it's pretty hard to change varieties on a whim. So it's whether climate's changing or not, which I think is up in the air for that answer. But most of the varietals change, I think, more based on what the market dictates than what the climate is anyhow. I don't see any drastic changes in plantings based on climate.
No, they're mostly driven by what they can sell.
Yeah,
or what they think they can sell.
Yeah. I have very strong opinions that aren't necessarily always right, but this region does certain varieties extremely well, and there's a lot of new varieties being planted here that I think are going to surprise a lot of people across the country.
Another question popped up, Sue, and it's wondering, with your clonal selection, with your varieties from Tablas Creek via Chateau Boscatel, do you think that clonal material affects the quality of the wines?
I do. I've tried different clones already produced wines, and my personal preference is toward the Chateau Beaucastel style. So yes, that's the short answer. Is yes, I think there's a difference for sure.
So what are and another question is, what are some of the new varieties that are popping up?
Tiroligo, Albarino, Vermentino, Adam, there's others. There's Carmenere. Tiroligo's been widely planted recently. There's, across the street from my winery, there's like 100 acres of ground that was borderline quality Chardonnay that's been ripped out, and they're planting Tiroligo. It's going to be interesting.
I'd say Tiroligo is one of the biggest commercially that's had some attraction as far as a new variety.
I think it's important to keep in mind there's several factors at play here. In Lodi, with nearly over 100,000 acres in production, supplies nearly 20% of California wine. So a lot of our grapes and a lot of our wine ends up in your California $7 to $10 wines. And the larger wineries have learned that many of these alternative varieties provide them with very good blending opportunities. And so they've really been pushing those the last few years, or the last decade or so, granted in small quantities, to use as some of them call their spice box wines.
Exactly.
And there is a lot of truth to that. And then you've got small producers like Sue and Layne who are pursuing these as varietal wines or as small blend wines.
I think in the grand scheme of the industry, we're all for small craft artisan producers, and with Mettler and Saint Amant and all that. Yeah.
The other question
it's
that
fascinating
popped
region.
up: does anyone know of any Petite Mansing growing in Lodi? I haven't seen that yet.
I never even heard of that one.
It's a.
How do you spell it?
It's Petite.
Well, I know that part. The other part.
MAN.
SENG.
SENG. I think it's a southern France variety.
Wow.
So I have a couple new varieties planted, but of course mine are small scale compared to some of the other growers. So I just planted Claret Blanc, so I'll be one of the first vineyards in the U.S. with Claret Blanc. It's been made in France for hundreds of years, but it's just taken a while to come over. And the same with Bourg Blanc. We'll be planting an acre of that in the spring. We're on the list, and so I'm really excited about these Châteauneuf-du-Pape whites making their way to California.
That's cool.
You need to pass your soup aside now.
Oh.
So we're going to bring in our.
Give her a doggy bag.
Your wine's up next, though, so you get to actually talk more.
No, I don't need to talk more.
One of the other questions that popped up was the drought, and how many people thought that affected harvest this year?
I would say most of us around here were on well water, where it wasn't as drastic as some other appellations where they rely on rainwater.
I think one of the primary things, because there was not much winter, whatever winter is in California, last season, all the vines came out of dormancy. Bud break was early, fruit set was early. But yeah, as Adam said, for us here at least, everything is groundwater, drip irrigated, and water wasn't really an issue.
I mean, I would add, it's very site specific and region specific, and so one vineyard.
Yeah, well, I've got a vineyard I source from in El Dorado County. You can't say that in Lodi, but the vineyards. My grower there lost his entire vineyard due to no water, and it's a shame. And it was a hell of a vineyard, but he was up at elevation, and he had shallow wells, and it dried up, and it's dead.
Well, I think that's one, we're really lucky here in Lodi that we sit on this huge aquifer. But of course, the drought worries us because the aquifers take 10 years to be replenished. So if we don't start getting significant amounts of rain or snowpack up in the mountains, we may lose that ability. But right now, unlike a lot of the southern areas, we are able to pull from this aquifer that...
I don't know about you guys, but I'm very much aware of how much water it takes to make wine, just for cleaning and washing barrels and stuff like that. And that concerns me. I'm doing the best we can to use as little of water as possible for that kind of thing.
Right.
So let's move on to your wine, Layne.
Yeah,
So
Alicante Bouschet. This is grown in a vineyard about 4 miles west of where my winery is. I'm sourcing this fruit. This vineyard was planted, it's only like 6 to 8 years old. Every time I ask the grower that question, he gives me a different answer. Alicante Bouschet is a tinture grape. The flesh is red, the skin is red. It's notorious for being tannic and aggressive and harsh. It was planted during Prohibition in California. It was planted widely, thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of this variety, because it shipped well. Thick skins, red flesh. You could ship it east, anywhere east of California is east, but your bootlegger could take it to New Jersey and make wine with that grape 3 or 4 times. It has traditionally been used for blending to buck up tannin and color. This one, I don't have the background and experience and such that Sue and Adam and Stuart do on varietals and clones and old school, old world stuff. But this is, I think, an interesting wine. It's 13.7 alcohol. It's gentle. It's got some true spicy finish.
It's delicious. It's really nice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Tony said this wine surprised him. He didn't see it coming, and he really liked it. And he meant that in a complimentary way, not in a he was expecting, had low expectations.
It's the first time I ever made it.
Wow.
And I've had several examples of it over time, but again, it's something I'm truly lacking a depth of experience with. I just, you got to know what good wine tastes like first is primary, and I think this tastes good, even though I don't know as much about it as I should.
That's great.
I've been told one thing that attracts winemakers to this variety, aside from the color, is the intense fruity character. It's got a real distinct upfront fruit character, and that's one reason why people really like it in the blend, is, to kind of bump that
Fruit up.
This has that. It's got great fruity character.
It's like a Pinot Noir on steroids.
Oh wow! Thank you.
It's great.
Yeah.
So the recipe for this is marinated smoked paprika, grilled pork tenderloin with pancetta, roasted tomato, and red pepper fennel ragu. And
Sounds intensely complex.
And Jenny on our staff was the one that attempted this recipe this morning, and I think it turned out really well and goes well with the Alicante. One of the things Tony, when he was describing the wine to me, got some black olive character, as well as there's a rusticness to it too, in a good way. Sometimes rustic wines are a negative comment, but I think they can also be a very good thing. And so he tried to mirror some of those flavors with the smoked paprika and the olives in this dish.
This was the last varietal picked in 2014 for me. A little over 5 tons. It spent, 14 months in barrel, but they were all neutral oak. Okay, there's no new chocolatey, toasty, caramely oak flavors from the barrels on this. I'm surprised. I like it. I'm surprised too.
Do you want to fathom a guess on how long this would age?
No. I don't know. I think it would continue to improve for another couple of years, maybe.
Do you think more than that?
I think, why wait? Drink it this holiday.
Hey, exactly. That's something I love. Whoa, what should I pair with this wine? And I always tell my customers, how about a second bottle? But this is one of those another experimental varietals for the region that I think is suited for Lodi.
So, is it 100%?
100%. 100%. It is.
How much did you make?
10 barrels, 250-ish cases.
It's not enough.
Well,
And
there's enough for you right now.
Okay, I'll go buy some.
James was asking how old the vineyard was, and I think you said 6 to 7.
It's a pretty young vineyard.
Yeah. And I think one of the questions that did come up earlier was how much Alicante is growing in Lodi. And
Not
honestly,
much.
there's not much.
Not much.
There was, as Layne had said earlier, quite a bit in and around Lodi during Prohibition times.
Yeah. I don't even think there's that many producers in California
Period.
dumb enough to do it.
There's a little bit sprinkled in some of these old Zen blocks. And
Yeah,
things
some
like
of the
that.
old Zen vineyards can be interplanted with a lot of stuff. And
I do know of a one vineyard, I think it's about 7 acres, that was just planted 2 years ago. And interestingly, it was an old Alicante head-trained vineyard planted in 1922 that they tore out at Morfry Ranch. And it was sad to see the old vineyard go, but the production had gotten down to 1.5 tons to the acre, and it just wasn't economically feasible to plant. But the winery had been taking the grapes, loved it. They use it as a blender, and encouraged them to replant it. And so they got that first crop this year off the new vines, and they're very happy with it. So,
well, my friend that grows this, he's a Portuguese guy from way back, and I named it's called St. Janice Vineyard. I didn't want to name it after Vern, so I named it after his wife.
You know, it reminds me of a Sangiovese, and so I wasn't surprised that the chef paired it with a tomato-based sauce, because I would do the same. You know, it reminds me of a nice Chianti from Italy. So, good job.
does Michael David get any
Well, thank you.
Alicante in there, Adam?
We don't. We don't. That's one variety we don't see.
You'll have to get Kevin working on that.
I know.
Yeah, I think it turned out really nice, and I think the pairing goes really well. Jenny, how difficult was it to fix?
Not difficult, just took a while.
If you didn't hear her, she said not difficult, it just took a while. And part of the problem was we sent Cameron to buy our ingredients and called for
Well, that
parsley.
took a while.
Yeah, and so he came back with our ingredients, and both Jenny's and my dish called for parsley, and 5 o'clock this morning, I'm getting started. I pull mine out, and it happens to be cilantro.
It's all green. It's, a vegetarianist person. It's green stuff. It's leafy. Eat it. Shut
I
up.
told him don't send the vegetarian to buy meat.
No, he's complaining about the cilantro versus parsley.
I haven't got into what you did with my short ribs yet, and we'll have to save that for the next dish. So
Well, thank you. I'm glad you guys like it.
Yeah, it was very nice.
I'm going to have another bite before he calls us off. So save your silverware.
Fork.
Are the people watching us getting
Yes,
food too?
eating.
If they prepared it, but
Oh,
Hopefully you guys are special on that.
like I said, they're tuning in to watch us eat dinner tonight.
Thank you. Oh, how pretty.
I am terrible about food and wine pairings. I've had some absolutely amazing ones, but my go-to answer is, what to pair with this? Another bottle. So
Well-
this is a skill and an ability to do this. Your chef friend who came up with this, that's some talent.
I think the challenge too is that it's subjective too. Everyone's tastes are differently, but there are certain foods that can make wines taste horrible.
Yeah, true.
And so there's there's something you have to be careful with there. And I mean, for me, it's oftentimes, wine, foods that have a lot of heat spice to it, can really bring out the bitterness and tannins in a wine. And that's where a wine like the Symphony, which we'll get to at the end, comes into play when you have foods with heat in it.
Yeah.
Calm it down.
And Brittany tells us she's absolutely stuffing her face too, so they're just not watching us eat.
Okay, good. What happened to our video up there? You can't see ourselves.
You broke it.
I didn't.
Our staff is having some technical issues, so.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yep, there we go.
Hey, we're back.
So, we're going to move on to our third wine of the evening, which
Did you make this?
I made this food, yeah.
Wow.
Wow, pretty.
Yeah, we'll get to the food in a minute. But the third wine is the Mettler Family Vineyards
I think Layne has it.
2013 Petite Sirah. It's not uncommon for Layne to hog the wine.
Oh, man, and again, another beautiful package there. This. Oh, look at the color on that thing, too. Woo!
So this wine, the Mettler Family Vineyards, comes from Adam's family, and I'll let Adam tell you a little bit about his family and himself. So
The Adams family?
So
Nice.
we're the Mettler family. We're one of the multi-generational families here, in wine grape growing families here in Lodi, and the Petite Sirah is one of the 3 varieties that we actually nationally distribute. So you might see it out there somewhere. It's sourced from 5 different Petite Sirah vineyards here in Lodi, kind of based on what that year brings and which vineyards are looking the best. We kind of go through and select, kind of cherry pick the better blocks and better lots. Some of the Petite Sirah that we do make, we use in some of the other blends, the Zinfandel and the Cabernet. This wine does have a little bit of Cabernet and a little bit of Cabernet Franc in the blend. It sees 100% barrels for about 14 months. It is French oak, about 50% new, so
Wow, that's really nice.
Adam, I got to interrupt you here.
hit me.
One of our viewers is asking where the tasting notes are on the Alicante, and
They're up here, baby.
the old saying about herding cats. Well, Layne's definitely one of the cats.
Yeah.
We asked, and it
Just didn't happen.
It didn't happen. So you'll have to take diligent notes on what he said this evening.
But I got the floor clean and the trash carried out. So
Sorry, Adam, didn't mean to interrupt you.
He's
Adam,
used
this
to
is
that
good.
if he's on anything with Layne.
I mean, these wines, man. This is my wheelhouse of wine: is Viognier and Petite Sirah and Zens and Alicante. Okay, it's a little weird, but that's a good Petite, and that's a beautiful
Very
Viognier.
nice, very nice.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
I was going to say we pick it fairly ripe. This wine I think is about 15.5% alcohol. Certainly trying to capture the big style of Petite Sirah, but also soften the edges a little bit with some of those other blenders that we use in there. So this bottling, I believe we did about 2,400 cases. What else you guys want to know?
So
That tastes like the color purple.
It's really good.
If purple had a flavor, that would be it.
So, Adam, how would you contrast or compare the Mettler Petite Sirah with the Michael David Petite Sirah as you do?
Well, Michael David, we do a couple different Petite Sirahs. So, as far as just stylistically, the Mettler is comparable in style, anyhow, to Earthquake Petite Sirah. A lot of bigger lots, more structured lots, oftentimes higher alcohol lots that see 100% barrel aging. the other Petite Sirah Michael David produces is Petite, which is a Petite Sirah and a Petite Verdot blend. So, straight away, just being a blend stylistically is a little bit different than, say the Mettler Petite Sirah or the Earthquake Petite Sirah from Michael David.
That is a great pairing.
That is a great pairing.
I know.
Isn't it?
I feel like you're talking and just eating and drinking now.
That's a great pairing.
So,
That's really. Sue, let's go back and
Yeah,
finish
let's go
that.
finish it.
Let me have your plate.
I don't want
gotta
them to
go.
take it away.
so Chef Tony loved this wine. In fact, I think part of his payment's going to be coming in a case of this wine that I owe him, because when we had our conversation yesterday, he more than once said, "I'm hinting that he wants this wine," and so I think I'm going to have to do that. But he really loved it, and he just noted it was big and rich, but also had an elegant note to it too.
Yeah.
There's a hint of ripeness.
Food and wine pairings. It should either complement with an E or contrast. And this complements. It's the melding of the balsamic and the beef and the tater and.
Yeah, the blueberry and the balsamic.
Oh my God, yeah, and that
ties in
wine.
with the fruit real nice.
That's really nice.
So for
like
those
that one.
that don't have the recipe in front of them, Tony put together a slow braised boneless beef short rib on creamy Yukon Gold parsnip potatoes with sautéed spinach with caramelized onions and gorgonzola with a berry paint finish.
Berry paint.
And
Is that the blueberry saucy bit or something there?
yeah, and I will tell you, I started at 5 o'clock this morning to do this because the ribs had to be braised for 5 hours
You
to get
don't
them.
usually get out of bed until 10 a.m.
No, that's you.
Adam, damn, that's good, isn't it? That's good.
So the funny thing here is yesterday, not only did Cameron come home with cilantro from the grocery store, but he came home with beef ribs, two whole racks of ribs. And I said, those aren't short ribs. He said, well, they didn't have any short ribs. And I said, this isn't going to work. He's like, what do I know? I'm a vegetarian or a pseudo-vegetarian.
Well, you cut them in half. Cut long ribs
make
in
them
half.
shorter,
They
right?
get short.
It's a short bit.
There would have been a lot of bone and not much meat on those ribs.
Yeah.
So I did go get some short ribs and started out, and I would say I did have one mishap this morning though too.
You dropped ours on the floor.
No, not quite. I had a little bit of an explosion. So the final step in the process, I was putting together the sauce, and you did the reduction of balsamic and the juices from the short ribs. Blueberries and some jam, got it reduced down, and then Tony says to put it in a blender, and so I thought I'd be smart and easy. Instead of digging out my blender, we have this little this like smoothie thing, and I put it in there, closed the lid, and went to turn it on, and it frickin' exploded.
I'm sorry, you've been chopped.
You can tweet the picture.
Well, thanks, David.
Yeah. So I literally was standing right in front of it as it blew on me, and I think it was too hot, and there was no air in there, and the whole thing just blew on me.
Did it hit the ceiling?
It hit the ceiling. It hit everything within 30 feet.
How's your wife?
Fortunately, she was not there, and she does not know this happened yet. So hopefully, she's not watching
Maybe
this.
he does now.
She does.
But I spent an hour cleaning.
Making excuses?
Yeah, see the picture here.
Holy wow!
So I'm gonna.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it was not fun, but fortunately, some was.
That looks unpleasant.
You recovered well.
Yeah, recovered well, but I think the wine and food go really well.
That is a nice pairing.
I think you should have that in the tasting room.
I think you should.
Pairing.
Little short rib?
Yes, I think so.
The other interesting thing about this dish too was the parsnips in the mashed potatoes. I had never seen that before, and
I've done that before. Yeah, it adds another dimension, complexity. You don't really notice it, but you would notice if it wasn't there.
the one
Wine's complexity, man. You know, wine's just the complexities and the different layers of flavor.
It's great.
one of the things that Tony encouraged me to do was actually, it's not in the recipe, was to
Take cooking lessons.
yeah, was to put the parsnips in the water, boil first for about 10 to 15 minutes before adding the Yukon Gold potatoes.
Yeah, because they're much denser
Yeah.
and they take longer to cook, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
Oh man, that's a good pairing.
Stuart can't stop eating it.
No. Well, I spend half the morning cooking and half the morning cleaning. I'm going to enjoy
Enjoy it a little bit.
enjoy my work. But
That's a nice looking house you had there too, until you ruined the cabinets.
yeah, I think I'm going to be finding reduction in my house for quite some time. It
Your wife
actually
is going to be reducing your attitude.
it actually blew so hard it went inside the cupboards too. So, anyways, back onto the wine too. Petite Sirah is a variety. I think we're seeing. Lodi is the number one producer of it in California. We produce more Petite Sirah than any other part of the state. I think, historically, Petite Sirah was known for producing fairly rustic and almost over-the-top, too intensive wines. But I think, and Adam can probably comment on this because they do a lot of it. I think Lodi's climate and its moderate ripening in the way you get the tannins and stuff lend itself well to this variety here.
Yeah, it does. I have.
You're not Adam.
I'm sorry.
You go
I
ahead.
was getting ready to brag on Adam again, but I'll shut up.
We see all styles. I mean, Michael David produces a lot of Petite Sirah as well, so anywhere from lighter tannin profiles all the way up to those real, tannic. It's almost a meal. It's got so much structure in it, and both Mettler and Michael David, neither place do we do any fining, but what I do in those wines is that those lots that are super high structure, really high tannin, those I kind of set aside and use as blender components into Zin, Cab, to really add a structure and a punch into some of those other blends, and then kind of take that next tier of Petite Sirah, which is still big and big and bad, but maybe doesn't quite have the aggressive tannin structure to use in the petite, blends themselves. So that's how I kind of dance around those. But we see all styles of Petite Sirah.
How's it going in the marketplace for you guys?
Going well. Mettler has seen probably 100% growth on Petite Sirah right now in the last year or so, and Michael David has seen extensive growth on especially the Petite
Yeah,
brand
that's
out
a
there.
good wine.
So it actually just got don't quote me, but 93 points, or second number 2 wine on the top 100 list.
Wow.
So that's going to come out pretty soon. So I think that was enthusiast.
Do you grow
That's
any?
right.
Do you grow any petite at the winery, at the Mettler Winery?
We do.
You do. Okay.
Yeah, physically at the taste room site.
Yeah.
Though? Yeah. There's a little bit there, and then like I said, there's about 4 or 5 other blocks, mainly on the east side of Lodi. There's 1 block on the west side.
East side, west side fight.
Yeah.
And for those interested in eclectic varieties, a stop at Mettler Family Vineyards is always a good one.
You
Cause
got Pinotage out there.
and Aglianico.
Aglianico.
Yeah.
We've got a GSM out there now.
Oh,
So,
good.
Yeah, lots of fun stuff. Come try.
Beautiful tasting room, too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is.
How many varieties are they growing right there at the winery? Do you know off the top of your head?
I think there is like 12. Yeah. There's Viognier, Roussanne, Sauv Blanc, Albarino, Muscat, Canelli, Aglianico, Petite Sirah, Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre, Pinotage, Merlot. I might be missing some.
Your brother-in-law takes care of the vineyards part of it.
That's right.
Yeah, Jason.
Yep.
Good. Well, I think
That was good.
Yeah, that was delicious. For those that didn't
good.
prepare this at home, and I don't think many of you did, it is well worth.
You should.
It's well worth the effort. That was a delicious meal, and despite my mishap, it really wasn't that difficult. Just take some time.
That's a good wine too, man.
It's great.
That's a good wine.
How would you characterize the 2013 vintage? Since we were talking vintages a little bit ago.
In general, the vintage as a whole, I think it was a good vintage. Maybe not as good as 12. I think 12 is a little better, but all in all, I would say here in Lodi, we don't really suffer with vintage swings as much as some other appellations do. We're blessed with, as we said earlier, blessed with ample water. We have the ability to water as needed, and climate's been pretty stable, and so all in all, the vintage is.
Oh, come on, man! It was the best vintage of the century.
I think it was noted as that early on, but I don't know if it wound up that way.
Well, 2015 is a vintage of the century, right?
The new vintage is always the vintage.
It's always the best one, isn't it?
Layne, how would you characterize 2013? Because we just tasted through your 13 Alicante.
I don't see the broader overall picture that Adam gets to see. I just look at my own problems. Certain of my 13s were fabulous. Certain of them I'm a little worried about, but I'm not a judge of the overall arching.
Yeah,
but I will agree with him that we don't have the vintage swings here that other areas do.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons it's been growing grapes for 150 years.
Exactly.
And I think especially when you look at Lodi proper, and that's what I'd call the McCullummy River AVA, which is the historic part of the growing region. It is very consistent year in and year out, and that's one of the reasons they grow there. Over the last 25 years, vineyard development in the region has spread into the outer lying areas of the appellation and up into the Borden Ranch and Clements Hills, and those areas are much more susceptible to weather issues, whether it's frost in the spring, that ends up ripening slightly later sometimes, so you can get some rainy weather in the fall. Water issues isn't always as available, yeah, you're right. The consistency.
Consistency is amazing, and I don't know this except from being told, but there's more soil variations than there are really climate variations in the McCullummy River appellation, at least. But the differences are so subtle; it's really hard to tell.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to our last wine of the evening, which is the 2014 Michael David Symphony, and it bears the Lodi Rules Sustainable Certification Seal, as did the Petite Sirah. I think that it's from a certified vineyard, I think, as well, and I think Sue's Acquiesce is.
Well, the Alicante Bouschet vineyard should be, but it's not right now. But
You're working on it.
I'll dim his outlook if he doesn't do it.
So, but one of the things that's popping up is I think a lot of people that are viewing us right now have never had the opportunity to taste a symphony. So, Adam, maybe you can start by explaining what is symphony.
Well, symphony is a hybrid varietal that's a cross between Muscat of Alexandria and Grenache Gris. So it was, I think, first created in the 1940s, but more widely planted and utilized in, I think, the 70s and 80s, so kind of later. This block has been planted at the Michael David facility property for multiple years, and we've been making that wine there for as long as I can remember, and before my time. So stylistically, what we try to do with this is bring it in kind of at a medium ripeness, about 21 bricks. We whole cluster press and ferment cold in stainless steel. And really the trick to this wine is just the timing of stopping the fermentation and arresting it with the right amount of sugar and the desired amount of alcohol. So that's the biggest trick with this wine. Aside from that, there's we don't do any blending or any other real winemaking techniques to it. So it's made to kind of be in that middle ground, kind of not so sweet that you only want to take a couple sips and that's it, and you don't want any more of it. But certainly it is sweet. It's about 4%. So
what can you explain? I think I know, but maybe not everybody else does. The difference between a clone and a hybrid. I mean, in a clone, you just take cuttings off of.
Well, I think a clone would be basically an identical of another plant.
Right.
A hybrid is actually cross-pollinated, by somebody. I think this was UC Davis, Dr. Olmo.
Dr. Olmo.
Yeah. So, physically.
Hybrids are intentionally done.
Yeah.
Because seeds won't breed true or grow true to what the variety is.
And what's interesting,
it's amazing. That stuff.
What's interesting tonight is we have two hybrids in this tasting without even really.
Well, yeah, that Alicante Bouschet is.
Yeah. It was a hybrid, in 1865 or something like that?
Petite Bouschet, and I forget the other one. But yeah, it's a hybrid as well. But Symphony's a one that has come onto the scene and recently and met with great success.
So it's got it's a little different than most of the Muscat or Muscat Canellis that I think that you see out there. It's in my opinion, it has a lot stronger kind of terpene character to it. It's not. Some of the Muscats are a little bit less aromatic, but yeah, it's a wine we try to create that you can drink a half bottle or 2 bottles.
What is the alcohol?
It's about 10%.
Oh, okay.
It says 11 on the label.
Oh,
That's
nice.
Probably, and about 4% residual.
Yeah.
So the other interesting.
It smells like Thanksgiving.
The other interesting thing to me though with the wine is the acidity. There's such nice acidity to it that it balances out. I wouldn't have guessed it had 4%
I
sugar
wouldn't
to
either.
it.
I wouldn't either.
It's not cloying sweet. It's really got a nice nose and.
Who made the pie?
So Cameron made the pie today, and you'll note in the pairings it says individualized peach cobblers, and if Tony's watching, he's probably hollering at the screen right now because Cameron took a shortcut and just made a pie.
Well, it's got cream in it though. That's not vegetariable.
I said he's pseudo-vegetarian.
He'll eat fish on Sunday.
He eats chicken and dairy, and I think he eats bacon too.
Bacon.
Just a little bit.
Have another pound of bacon, Cameron.
Yeah, he brings in those maple bars with bacon on it.
Oh man! Congratulations to the chef who came up with these pairings. This is fantastic.
Really good.
Yeah, and when Tony was tasting this wine, he said that the stone fruit character and the aromatics really came through, and so he felt the peaches and just really were a natural fit with this wine. And what Tony's explained to me with desserts too is, you need to always make sure your wine is sweeter than the dessert too. If you get a really sweet dessert with a dry wine, sometimes it can really mix well.
But you're right. You got to match this.
Wine sweeter than a dessert. That's what he says.
Yeah. It's a pretty good rule of thumb, and that the
the
wine's
dessert's sweeter than the wine's just going to taste like battery acid.
Yeah. So I'm going to have another bite. Despite Cameron's shortcut, it still tastes pretty dang good.
It's not an individual cobbler, it's just one big piece of pie.
One big pie. One big cobbler.
Well, they sell those.
You can only go so far.
We know some kitchen stores.
Only go so far for you.
In all honesty, we really didn't decide we were doing this until yesterday.
Doing the pairing and stuff.
I mean, we had it all figured out, but I said,
I'm surprised you guys invited me. So.
Well, there were other people that couldn't come.
They couldn't.
You were the wild card.
Yeah.
They called us like 3 months ago.
Right.
Yeah, I got a phone call yesterday. Hey, you got anything going on tomorrow night? No. Adam and Sue and Stuart are going to be eating and drinking, and
That's usually your.
our fourth choice fell out. So, what are you doing?
No, but before we go, a couple of things. One, too, is for those that haven't checked out our new Lodi Wine website, we just launched it this fall, and it's got an online store attached to it too. And we put these 4 wines together as a package deal for $80, and it includes the recipes. So, for those of you that end up writing this up, encourage your readers to give it a try, because I think all 4 wines by themselves are delicious, and when you put them with this meal. I could definitely have this for my Thanksgiving, if not another evening.
Wine's meant to enhance life and friends and food and fun, and these are right there, man.
Very nice. Well done.
So if there's no other further questions, I think we're about ready to wrap it up for the evening. Layne, you have anything you final want to say for our guests this evening?
No.
Sue?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Yes.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly. Happy holidays.
And thank you all for coming here. I want to thank again.
You guys, great wines.
I want to thank Cameron and Jenny for helping prepare the meals and running our back end here, and thanks CCA for getting you guys all to join us here this evening, and thank Adam and Sue and Layne for donating the wine to this to send to you guys as well, and coming here this evening to enjoy dinner. And they love your attitude out there, by the way, Layne.
Me? I got a crap attitude.
At times he does, so. But we try and keep him in line.
I'm a little jaded,
He's a little worn out.
a little bitter.
It is at the end of harvest, so, and it's been a long season, so we're all fairly ready for Thanksgiving.
We're ready for some good food and some good wine.
Yeah.
You know?
Still got grapes in the tank.
You still got grapes fermenting?
Oh my
Not
God.
for many, but extended mass.
Oh wow. I gave up weeks ago.
We pressed off our last stuff a week ago Monday, so we still have stuff we need to barrel down.
Yeah, I'm still barreling.
Yeah. Still
What
early.
about you, Sue? Your stuff's already.
She's probably ready to bottle.
You're about ready to bottle, yeah.
Bottled, but everything's kind of put to bed for a little while. So.
Good.
Well, good. I want to thank everyone tonight, and we will see you next time. Cheers.
Good night, everybody.